My daughter Emily died 8 months ago. I don't know any softer way to start this story. There's no easing into it. It happened, and nothing I've done since has made it any less true. She was 6 years old. She had freckles. She liked dandelions and fairy wings and thought the moon was following us when we drove at night. And now she's gone. They said it was an aneurysm. A sudden one. One moment she was coloring in the living room. The next she slumped forward, her crayon dragging across the page. No warning. No time to act. My wife called for an ambulance while I performed CPR, but we both knew, the second she didn't respond. Our house is quieter now. Or it was, for a while. Then the crying started. It began 3 weeks ago. It was a Thursday. I remember because I had an early meeting Friday, and I'd gone to bed around 10. My wife, Clara, was already asleep beside me. The room was still, heavy with silence, the kind you learn to live with after the world guts you. And then I heard it. A soft, high-pitched sob. Faint. Coming from somewhere down the hall. I froze. Sat up in bed. Listened harder. Nothing. I shook it off. Thought it might have been a dream or a memory playing tricks on me. I didn't mention it to Clara the next morning. But the next night, it happened again. This time it was clearer. A tiny voice, sobbing, unmistakably a child. It echoed down the hallway like it was coming from Emily's old room. I got up. Clara didn't stir. She sleeps hard now, with a mild sleep aid her doctor prescribed. I walked the hallway slowly, my feet cold on the floorboards. The crying stopped as I reached the door to Emily's room. Her door was closed. It always is. Neither of us goes in there much anymore. But that night, I opened it. The air inside was cool. Not cold, just noticeably cooler than the hallway. Her curtains were drawn, her bed untouched. The room was exactly how we'd left it, a frozen snapshot of a life interrupted. I stepped inside, half expecting something. I'm not sure what. A toy still moving. A flickering light. Nothing. Just silence. Then I heard it again, behind me this time. From down the hall. The crying. Like it had moved. I spun around and walked back into the hall. The sound was receding, faint, like it was coming from downstairs now. I followed it, heart racing, half mad with confusion, fear, and something else, hope. But when I reached the bottom of the stairs, there was nothing. No sound. No movement. I stood in the dark for a long while before finally returning to bed. The next morning, I told Clara. She stared at me, blinking slowly like I'd just spoken a language she didn't understand. "That's not funny, Daniel," she said. "I'm not joking." "You heard her crying?" "Yes." Her eyes filled instantly. She turned away, hand over her mouth, and walked into the bathroom. We didn't talk about it again that day. But that night, the crying returned. And Clara heard it too. We both sat up in bed at the same time. "You hear that?" I asked. She didn't answer, but her eyes were wide, wet. She nodded slowly. I turned on the lamp. The crying was distant, soft, but real. It sounded like Emily. Clara got out of bed before I could stop her. She was already down the hall when I caught up. Her hand hovered near Emily's doorknob. I could see her trembling. "She's in there," she whispered. "No," I said. "She can't be." She opened the door. The room was unchanged. The air still cooler than the rest of the house. But something felt different, as if the space was holding its breath. We stepped inside together. And then, the closet door creaked. It wasn't much. Just a tiny movement, barely audible. But Clara gasped and backed out of the room. I followed, gently closing the bedroom door behind me. We didn't sleep that night. Over the next few days, the crying became a pattern. Always at night. Always starting softly and fading as I got closer. Sometimes it sounded like it was coming from the vents. Once, I swear, I heard it coming from inside our bedroom, just for a second, then gone. We tried recording it. Clara set her phone on the dresser and hit record before bed. In the morning, we played it back. Static. But in the middle of the recording, a soft sound. A whimper. Clara dropped the phone when she heard it. I picked it up and rewound, listening again. It was faint. But it was there. Not a cry exactly, more like a breath caught in a sob. Still, not enough for anyone else to believe. That was when I emailed Pastor Green. He baptized Emily when she was a baby. He'd always been kind, thoughtful, not quick to judge. I didn't know what I was even asking, really. Just that I needed someone to hear me. He replied within a few hours. Daniel. I believe you and Clara are going through something no one should. Whether this is spiritual or psychological, I'm here. I'd be glad to come by and pray with you both. He visited the next evening. We didn't mention ghosts. Or spirits. Just said we were hearing things. And couldn't explain them. He didn't pry. He stood in Emily's room with us, said a prayer, blessed the walls, and offered to return if things got worse. That night was the quietest in weeks. We thought it was over. We thought wrong. 3 nights of silence. We started to believe it had passed. Clara even smiled again. Not a big smile, just a flicker of peace, like a thin beam of light through a thick curtain. She baked something for the first time in months. Banana bread. We ate it in silence, but it tasted like hope. Then the crying came back. This time, it was worse. It started earlier, just after sunset. And it wasn't distant. It was in the walls. I was in the kitchen when I heard it. A sharp, wailing sob, muffled but so close I dropped the knife I was cleaning. Clara came running down the stairs. It's her, she whispered. No, I said, but I didn't believe myself. The sobbing echoed again. From behind the cabinets. I opened one and knocked on the back panel. The crying stopped. Then, from the vent above the stove, came something else. A voice. Daddy. Soft. Warbled. But clear. Clara fell to her knees. I stood frozen, hands still inside the cabinet. The air around me felt charged, like static before a lightning strike. I whispered, Emily. Silence. Then, footsteps. Small ones. Running down the upstairs hallway. Clara jumped up and ran toward the stairs. Wait. I called after her, but she was already at the top. She turned toward Emily's room, and stopped cold. The bedroom door was wide open. We hadn't opened it. The room inside flickered, like there was a light on, but we hadn't replaced the dead bulb in there in months. Clara, don't, I said, but she stepped inside before I could reach her. I followed. Emily's room glowed with a faint, bluish light. It didn't come from any bulb. It came from the closet. The door stood half open, and inside, it shimmered. Something like moonlight poured from it, but with no source. Just a cold, silvery sheen. Clara stepped toward it. Emily, she whispered. The closet door creaked wider. I grabbed Clara's wrist. Stop. Please. We don't know what this is. She looked at me, eyes glassy with grief and wonder. What if she's trapped? What if she needs us? What if it's not her? She blinked. Something in my voice, the certainty, the fear, reached her. We backed out slowly. And the closet door closed. Not slammed. Not violently. It just clicked shut. The light vanished. Emily's room returned to stillness. But the air was colder than before. We didn't sleep that night. Clara sat up in bed, clutching the blanket to her chest. I stayed near the door, listening. Nothing came. In the morning, we called a contractor. Told him there might be mold in the walls. That we heard strange sounds, not crying, just strange noises. He came that afternoon. A quiet guy named Ron. Balding, mid-50s. Didn't ask many questions. We let him start in Emily's room. He scanned the walls with a moisture meter, then rapped his knuckles against the drywall. Something behind here, he muttered. What do you mean? He pointed. Air gap. Not on the blueprint. I frowned. Like, a crawl space. He shook his head. No, this is vertical. Between the studs. But it's wider than normal. Could be some kind of shaft or chute. We watched as he cut a small inspection hole. Behind it, darkness. Ron peered in with a flashlight. Then he paused. What? I asked. He didn't answer right away. Ron. There's something in here, he said finally. Looks like a toy. Clara stiffened. Ron reached in and pulled out a stuffed rabbit. Dirty, with one eye missing. Emily's. I felt my knees go weak. Clara covered her mouth. Ron set it down gently on the dresser. Sorry. I didn't mean to. That shouldn't be in there, Clara said. Her voice was shaking. We packed that away. In storage. Ron looked confused. Well, it's been in that wall for a long time. Judging by the dust. He examined the gap again. There's something else in there. Like. I don't know. Looks like fabric. No, Clara said. We don't want to know. Ron hesitated, then stepped back. I can seal it back up if you want. I nodded. Yes. Please. He patched the hole. But that night, the crying got louder. It started before we even got into bed. From behind the walls again. From the vent. From under the floor. It sounded like Emily was everywhere. And she wasn't alone. I heard whispers. Low, wet, dragging whispers, like someone trying to speak through a throat full of water. Clara was curled into a ball on the bed. I sat beside her, gripping her hand. Make it stop, she whispered. Then the light bulb in our bedroom flickered and burst. Glass rained down from the ceiling. And then, from the corner of the room, we heard a giggle. A child's laugh. Quick. Like a spark. We both turned. Nothing there. But the shadows felt wrong. They moved too slowly. The next day, Clara left. She said she was going to her sister's for a few days. She didn't ask me to come. I didn't argue. As she packed, I asked, "Do you think I'm crazy?" She paused at the suitcase. No. I think this house is sick. And whatever's here, it's using her voice. She called me Daddy. Clara flinched. Then she walked out. Now I'm alone. And the crying hasn't stopped. I don't know what day it is anymore. Since Clara left, the nights bleed into mornings without rest, and every hour feels like dusk. I haven't left the house. Haven't eaten more than a granola bar and half a cup of cold coffee. I tried to stay downstairs the first few nights. Thought if I avoided Emily's room, the crying might stop. It didn't. In fact, it changed. It evolved. Now I hear her even when I'm awake. Fully awake. Not groggy, not dreaming. She calls to me from places no sound should come from, the drain in the sink, the gap beneath the fridge, the chimney in the living room. She says the same thing every time. "Daddy, I'm cold." Sometimes she sobs after. Sometimes she just waits. I covered the vents with duct tape. Shoved towels under every door. Turned up music, white noise, anything to drown it out. But I still hear her. Sometimes I think I feel her. The brush of tiny fingers on the back of my neck. The indentation of small feet at the edge of the bed. Twice, I've woken up to find one of her drawings on the floor. On real paper. With crayons we boxed up months ago. Stick figures. One tall, one short. And a house. Always the same house, our house, but the windows are blacked out and the door is missing. The last one she drew had something else. A figure. Tall. Thin. No face. Standing behind the little girl. I called Clara. She didn't pick up. I left a voicemail, probably sounded deranged. Told her I needed help. That things were happening. That Emily was trying to reach me, but she wasn't alone. I cried on the recording. She still hasn't called back. That night, I did something I swore I never would. I went back into Emily's room. It was 2:13 a.m. I know because I wrote it down afterward. I needed to prove to myself that I was still tracking reality somehow. The house was completely silent. Even the fridge had stopped humming. When I opened her bedroom door, the air hit me like a freezer. Not just cool, freezing. I could see my breath. The closet door was open again. I hadn't touched it. And inside, that same pale, unnatural light spilled out. But this time, something was in the light. A shape. Small. Curled. At first, I thought it was Emily. She was crouched in the corner of the closet, knees to chest, arms around her legs. I stepped forward. "Emily." She didn't move. My voice cracked. "Baby." She looked up. And I realized it wasn't her. The shape had a face, but not my daughter's. It looked like someone had tried to sculpt a child's face from melted wax, then forgotten what children actually looked like. Too many teeth. Eyes like smudged glass marbles. It tilted its head. And then it smiled. I screamed and fell backward, slamming into the dresser. The thing crawled forward, not walking, but slithering on all fours like an insect. Its limbs moved wrong. Jerky. Snapping into place like a broken puppet. I scrambled out of the room and slammed the door. The closet light cut off instantly. But I could hear it on the other side of the door. Scratching. Softly. Then came the voice. "Daddy. I'm cold. I didn't sleep." I sat with my back against the front door, a kitchen knife in one hand and my phone in the other. I must have dialed Clara a dozen times. Finally, she answered. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice groggy. "It's not her," I said. "Clara, something is pretending to be her." There was silence. Then, "I know." "What?" "I've heard it too. Since I left." My blood went cold. "She followed you?" "No. Not exactly. It's different. But the voice is the same. The crying. The knocking. The drawings. You got drawings?" One was taped to the back of the guest room mirror. I didn't put it there. I couldn't breathe. "Clara, what is this?" "I don't know. But I think we made it stronger." "How?" She hesitated. "Then, we kept listening. That stuck with me. We kept listening. Maybe that's what it wanted all along. Attention. Grief. Belief. We fed it. And now it's grown." I decided to call Pastor Green again. Told him everything. Even the things that sounded insane. The creature in the closet. The voice in the vents. The drawings. He didn't laugh. Didn't pause. He just said, "It's not Emily." And I broke. I sobbed like I did the night we lost her. Maybe worse. Because this time, something was using her against us. He offered to return. Said he'd bring someone else this time, someone experienced. He didn't elaborate. They're coming tomorrow night. Tonight, the house is louder than ever. Crying from every wall. Footsteps in the attic, too heavy to be a child's. A humming from the basement. Low. Constant. Like a machine warming up. I can feel it watching me. From mirrors. From corners. From behind closed doors. Sometimes I think if I opened the closet again, it would just be standing there. Waiting. Smiling. Pastor Green arrived just after sundown. He wasn't alone. With him came a woman in her late 40s, tall and sharp-featured, dressed in all black. Her name was Mara. No last name. She introduced herself in a flat, matter-of-fact tone and immediately asked to see the center. The center of what? I asked. She gave me a tight, humorless smile. Where it comes through. I led them to Emily's room. Mara paused just outside the doorway. She tilted her head slightly and inhaled. "Do you smell that?" she asked. I shook my head. Rot and ozone. Classic convergence. Pastor Green looked uncomfortable. Mara stepped into the room. Immediately, the closet door creaked open. Without wind. Without touch. The temperature dropped like a trapdoor opening under our feet. Mara didn't flinch. She walked toward the closet and stared into the empty space. "It's not a ghost," she said. I felt my chest tighten. "What is it then?" "It's a mimic," she said. "Something old. It finds a grief anchor, a place where pain stays fresh, and uses that wound as a door." Pastor Green looked stunned. "I thought we were dealing with a haunting." "You were wrong." Mara turned to me. "It's feeding on your mourning. On both of yours. But mostly yours, Daniel. You've listened the most. Answered the most." My mouth was dry. I just wanted to help her. "She's gone," Mara said, not unkindly. "What's left is not your daughter." She reached into her coat and pulled out a leather pouch. From it, she removed something that looked like a handmade compass, a thin bundle of dried herbs, and a silver bell. She laid them out carefully on the bed. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Closing the door." The ritual was simple in motion, but the air in the room changed with every word Mara spoke. She paced in a tight circle around the bed, whispering in Latin, ringing the bell once for every pass. The walls groaned. Not creaked, groaned, like they were in pain. The closet light flickered. Pastor Green held a cross to his chest, lips moving silently. Then, the crying began again. But this time, it wasn't distant. It was in the room with us. It started from the closet. Then spread, bouncing from corner to corner like a trapped fly. "Daddy," the voice screamed. "Please. I'm cold." Mara didn't stop. She spoke louder. The bell rang sharper. Then a slam, the closet door flew fully open. The mimic stepped out. It looked like Emily. Exactly like her. Except wrong. Her skin was too smooth. Her smile too wide. Her eyes, black as oil. She walked toward me with trembling hands, tears spilling from her face. "Daddy, don't let them hurt me." I froze. Every instinct in my body screamed to catch her, hold her, protect her. But I didn't move. Mara stepped between us. The mimic hissed, literally hissed, and its face folded inward like paper soaked in fire. Beneath it wasn't a child at all. It was something ancient. Hollow-eyed. Starving. Mara threw the herbs at its feet and rang the bell again. The mimic shrieked. The kind of sound that doesn't come from a throat. 1,000 voices all at once. It lunged, but it didn't make it to us. It hit something, an invisible wall mid-air, and slammed back into the floor. It thrashed. Crawled. Screamed in dozens of voices, mine, Clara's, Emily's. Then it twisted into smoke. And vanished. Silence. The room felt lighter. The cold receded. Pastor Green sat down, visibly shaking. Mara collected her things. "Is it gone?" I asked. "For now," she said. "But the scar is still open. Until it heals, others may come." "What do we do?" "Live," she said. "Grieve the right way. Don't listen when the walls whisper. Don't answer the crying." She paused at the doorway. "And Daniel, if you see her again, whatever shape she wears, run." They left just before midnight. I stood in Emily's doorway for a long time, staring at the closet. The light never returned. Neither did the voice. The next morning, Clara came back. I didn't have to explain. She looked at me, saw everything in my eyes, and just nodded. We agreed to move out. Start over. The house had become a wound too deep to heal. That was 3 weeks ago. We signed the lease on a new place yesterday. Simple, clean, new. No closets in the bedrooms, only drawers. The crying hasn't followed us. But this morning, I found something by the front door. One of Emily's drawings. Stick figures again. Me, Clara, and Emily. All holding hands. But in the corner, that same tall, faceless shape. Smiling. We burned the drawing. I told Clara it was probably something old that got mixed in with our boxes, but I could see in her eyes, she knew better. We packed faster after that. By the weekend, we were out of the old house and into the new one. A town over. Fresh walls. No memories embedded in the wood grain. Clara cried the first night. Not because she was sad, she said, but because it was the first time in months she felt like we might finally be free. For a while, we were. No voices. No crying. No scratches behind the walls. The air was quiet in a way that didn't feel heavy. We slept. We laughed. We started to feel human again. And then, the knock came. It was 3:17 a.m. I remember it exactly. 3 soft knocks on the bedroom wall. Not the door, the wall. Clara stirred but didn't wake. I sat up slowly, pulse climbing. The knocks didn't come again. I got out of bed, heart racing, and pressed my ear to the drywall. Nothing. Then, as I turned back to the bed, I heard a whisper. From under the bed. "Daddy." I jumped back so fast I fell, hitting the floor with a loud thump. Clara woke immediately. "What? What happened?" "There's something under the bed," I said breathlessly. She looked at me with wide, terrified eyes. "Daniel, we don't even have a bed frame." She was right. The mattress was on the floor. There was no under. But the voice came again. "Daddy, it's so cold." We didn't speak. We didn't move. Just sat there in the dark, clutching each other, waiting for the sun. Morning came. The light washed the fear away, but only on the surface. We called Mara. She answered on the first ring. "It found you again?" she asked. "I think so." She was quiet for a beat. "Did you listen to it?" "No. But I heard it." "That's enough." What do we do? Her voice dropped lower. I told you the scar was open. You moved houses. Not your grief. I didn't know what to say to that. Before she hung up, she said one more thing. It'll use anything. Memories. Love. Familiar sounds. Whatever it takes to get through. Don't answer. Don't believe. And if it ever asks you to do something. She didn't finish the sentence. That night, Clara found something in the guest bathroom. A single crayon mark on the wall. Just a line. Red. Diagonal. We stared at it like it might move. I wiped it off. But the next morning, there were 3 more. Parallel. Uneven. They weren't drawn like a child would draw them. More like claws. We didn't speak of them. Not anymore. Talking seemed to make it worse. We pretended. We cooked. We cleaned. We smiled. But at night, I didn't sleep. I started hearing things again. The creak of small footsteps on wood, even though our floors are carpeted. Breathing from behind the bathroom mirror. And always, the crying. Not loud. But constant. I found myself leaning into it again. Listening. Straining to catch the words. And sometimes, they changed. No longer just, Daddy, I'm cold. Now. Let me in. Why did you leave me? I remember where you hid the pills. You said you'd protect me. Open the door, Daddy. But there was no door. Not anymore. Last night, it changed again. No crying. Just, a laugh. Soft. Giggling. Like a 6-year-old trying to keep a secret. Then, the sound of running. From one end of the hallway to the other. Clara heard it too. We didn't chase it. We just sat in bed, gripping each other's hands, and waited. The silence that followed felt worse. Like something holding its breath right outside the room. Today, I opened a sealed box we hadn't touched since moving. Inside, Emily's old fairy wings. We never brought them. We buried them with her. I didn't tell Clara. I burned them in the sink. The flame turned blue for a second. And I swear I heard her laugh behind me. I don't know how this ends. I don't think it does. There's something out there that wears grief like skin. That crawls into the cracks of memory and stretches itself wide enough to seem real. It knows her laugh. Her cry. Her drawings. It even knows the lullaby I sang to her the night before she died. I heard it humming last night. Off key. Like a stranger trying to remember the words. We've stopped pretending. We sleep in shifts now. Clara is making plans to stay with her sister again. I don't blame her. Last night, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror for 20 minutes, waiting to see my daughter's face instead of my own. And part of me, the worst part, wanted to see her. Even if it was the thing. Even if it lied. Because the lies still sounded like her. And the silence where she should be. That's worse than any monster.